The sacred arena had fallen silent. One after another, 12 noble Luna candidates stepped toward the Diamond Wolf. Each believed generations of royal blood had prepared her for this moment. Each believed the ancient guardian would lower its crystal-covered head and declare her the future Luna of Valtheris. Instead, it answered every hopeful step with the same terrifying judgment. A roar so powerful that silver banners snapped in the wind. Marble cracked beneath trembling feet. Princesses staggered backward. Battle-hardened alphas instinctively reached for weapons they were forbidden to draw inside the sacred grounds. Even the Alpha King's own wolf refused to meet the Guardian's blazing sapphire eyes. Then the impossible happened. The palace guard shoved forward one final girl. Not a princess, not a noblewoman, not even a candidate, only a rejected Omega wearing a faded servant's cloak, still dusted with ashes from the royal kitchens. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to be seen. Thousands waited for another roar. Instead, the sacred Diamond Wolf slowly lowered its massive crystal-covered head and bent one knee before her. The entire kingdom forgot how to breathe. The oldest elder dropped his staff onto the marble floor. His trembling voice echoed across the silent arena. The Guardian has found its true queen. But if that ancient prophecy had truly awakened, why had every sacred record insisted that such a queen could never exist? Winter sunlight spilled across the towering walls of the moon arena, turning every layer of white stone into silver. Thousands filled the circular stands, their voices weaving together into a restless hum beneath banners embroidered with the crest of every great pack in Valtheris. For 100 years, the kingdom had waited for this day. The choosing. No council could appoint a Luna. No alpha could name a queen. Only the sacred Diamond Wolf possessed that authority. Legends claimed it had stood beside the kingdom's first rulers before the oldest castles were built. It neither aged nor obeyed commands. It answered only the moon oath sworn 8 centuries ago. King Kaelin Draven stood upon the royal platform, his broad shoulders wrapped in a dark wolf fur cloak. Unlike the nobles surrounding him, he wore no jewels beyond the silver crown resting upon his brow. His expression remained calm, but his sharp gray eyes studied everything, especially the Guardian. Something was different today. The enormous wolf stood perfectly still in the center of the arena, crystal-like for shimmered beneath the pale winter sun. Every slow breath sent tiny fragments of sparkling frost drifting through the air. Its sapphire eyes remained fixed ahead, unreadable. Elder Rowan stepped forward, leaning upon an ancient staff carved with moon symbols. The choosing begins. A horn echoed across the valley. The first Luna candidate entered proudly. Princess Evelyn smiled with practiced confidence. Her silver gown flowed behind her as servants scattered white rose petals across her path. She bowed gracefully before the Guardian. Silence. Then, the Diamond Wolf exploded into motion. Its roar shook the arena with enough force to send birds bursting from distant pine forests. The princess screamed. She stumbled backward, nearly falling as terrified attendants rushed to catch her. The Guardian never moved another step. Its judgment had already been delivered. Rejected. Uneasy whispers spread through the audience. Perhaps she approached incorrectly. The Guardian is testing them. The next will succeed. One by one they came. A daughter of the Northern Pack. Rejected. A famous warrior princess. Rejected. The High Alpha's niece. Rejected. Another roar. Another terrified retreat. By the time the 12th candidate fled the arena in tears, the marble beneath the Guardian's paws had splintered from the force of its voice. No one remembered such a thing ever happening. Even Elder Rowan's hands trembled. This is never. He stopped speaking. History offered no explanation. Among the spectators, Princess Celine kept her perfect smile despite humiliation burning beneath it. She had spent years preparing for this day. Tutors had memorized every sacred custom. Tailors had woven moonthread into her ceremonial gown. She had expected applause. Instead, she had received the same rejection as everyone else. Her eyes hardened. If she could not become Luna through honor, there would always be other paths. Far beyond the noble seats, Lyra Ashwin hurried along a narrow servant's passage carrying a wooden basket filled with fresh bandages and medicinal herbs. She kept her head lowered. That had become a habit years ago. Invisible people survived longer. Only hours earlier she had scrubbed blood from the kennel floors after one of the hunting wolves injured its paw. Before that, she had baked bread through the night because palace servants weren't permitted to rest during royal ceremonies. None of it mattered. Tomorrow another servant would replace her if she disappeared. A captain suddenly grabbed her arm. "You!" She looked up, startled. "I need those medical supplies. Follow me." Before she could answer, she was pulled through a side gate and into the sacred arena itself. The crowd immediately noticed. Murmurs rolled across thousands of seats. "What is an Omega doing there? Who allowed her inside? Remove her!" Lyra froze. She had never stood beneath so many eyes before. The basket trembled in her hands. Commander Reese frowned. "Stay behind me." He strode toward a group of injured attendants, still shaken by the Guardian's earlier roars. Then everything changed. A deep rumble rolled across the arena. Not another roar. Something quieter. Almost recognition. The Diamond Wolf slowly turned away from the royal platform. Away from the elders. Away from the noble candidates. Its glowing eyes settled entirely upon Lyra. She instinctively stepped backward. I'm sorry." The wolf began walking. Each enormous step echoed like distant thunder. Soldiers reached for their weapons. King Calen quietly raised one hand. "No one moves." His voice carried across the arena with calm authority. The Guardian stopped only a few feet before the frightened Omega. Lyra could feel warm breath drifting across her face despite the winter air. Its sapphire eyes searched hers with impossible patience. She expected another roar. Instead, the great beast lowered its head. Slowly, deliberately, it bent one knee. Gasps swept through the arena. The Guardian touched its crystal muzzle gently against Lyra's forehead. A pulse of pale silver light spread beneath her feet, racing through ancient carvings hidden within the marble floor. Symbols no one had seen for centuries awakened one after another. Elder Rowan stared in horror. "No!" His staff slipped from trembling fingers. "It cannot be!" King Calen stepped forward, unable to look away. For the first time in years, certainty abandoned him. The Diamond Wolf had never bowed to anyone, not even kings. The Guardian lifted its head once more. Without taking its eyes off Lyra, it turned toward the distant mountains beyond the palace walls, toward a place sealed for generations, the Diamond Cavern. Then it began walking. After only a few steps, it stopped and looked back, waiting, not for the king, not for the elders, for Lyra, and every soul in the arena realized the impossible truth. The Sacred Guardian had not merely chosen the rejected Omega. It expected her to follow. No one dared stop the Sacred Diamond Wolf. The ancient Guardian crossed the moon arena with measured, silent steps, each crystal claw clicking softly against the fractured marble. Thousands of eyes followed its every movement, yet the creature never looked toward the royal platform again. Its attention remained fixed on only one person, Lyra. She stood frozen, the empty herb basket still hanging from trembling fingers. Never in her life had she been the center of attention. As a servant, she had learned that safety came from being unnoticed. Every instinct urged her to disappear back into the narrow corridors beneath the palace. Instead, the oldest creature in Valtheris was waiting for her. Commander Reese stepped in front of her, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Your Majesty," he called cautiously, "the Guardian is leading an untested Omega beyond the sacred grounds. We cannot allow—" "You cannot stop it," Elder Rowan interrupted quietly. The old man slowly retrieved his fallen staff, though his hand still shook. "The Guardian has never obeyed kings." His clouded eyes remained fixed upon the enormous wolf. "Kings have always obeyed the Guardian." The words settled over the arena like fresh snowfall. King Calen descended the royal stairs without another word. His black cloak drifted behind him as he crossed the broken marble floor until he stood only a few steps from Lyra. She lowered her eyes immediately. I'm sorry, Your Majesty." His voice remained calm. "For what?" "I shouldn't have entered the arena." "You didn't." She hesitated. "You were brought here." It was the first kind sentence anyone of noble blood had spoken to her in years. Calen studied the frightened servant carefully. There was no triumph in her expression, no greed, no excitement at the attention surrounding her. Only confusion, only fear. That alone unsettled him more than the Guardian's impossible choice. Most people dreamed of standing where Lyra stood now. She looked as though she wished to wake from a nightmare. The Diamond Wolf released a low rumble. Not impatient, expectant. It turned toward the northern cliffs where towering mountains overlooked the kingdom. Beyond them waited the Diamond Cavern. No living wolf had entered its depths for generations. According to tradition, the cavern had sealed itself after the last true moon oath was fulfilled nearly 800 years earlier. Since then, every attempt to force open its crystal gates had ended in failure. The stone simply refused to yield, yet the Guardian walked toward it as though returning home. Kaelin glanced toward Elder Rowan. "We follow." The elder bowed his head. "As the Guardian wills." Within minutes, a small procession left the palace. The Diamond Wolf led in silence. Behind it walked Lyra, still struggling to understand why the beast refused to leave her side. King Kaelin followed only a few paces behind, accompanied by Commander Rhys and a handful of carefully chosen royal guards. Elder Rowan carried several ancient scrolls beneath one arm, his thoughtful expression growing heavier with every step. No cheering crowds followed, only whispers. The kingdom watched from a distance as snow began drifting gently from the gray winter sky. Their path wound through the silver forest. Towering pines stood beneath blankets of fresh snow, while frozen streams reflected the pale afternoon sun. Every few moments, ordinary wolves appeared among the trees. Gray wolves, white wolves, old scarred hunters, young pups. They emerged without sound. None approached the humans. Instead, each lowered its head respectfully toward Lyra before vanishing back into the forest. Commander Rhys noticed first. "That isn't normal." "No," Elder Rowan murmured. "It isn't." Lyra barely noticed. She had always loved wolves. As a child, she secretly carried scraps of food beyond the servant village for injured strays. The palace kennel masters often scolded her for wasting supplies, but hungry animals had never frightened her. Today, something felt different. The wolves weren't simply watching. They recognized her. She couldn't explain why that thought filled her with sorrow instead of joy. By sunset, the mountains rose before them. Carved into black stone stood an enormous archway veined with shimmering crystal, the entrance to the Diamond Cavern. Its gates had remained sealed for centuries. The Diamond Wolf climbed the final stone steps. Without hesitation, it pressed one crystal paw against the center of the ancient doors. Nothing happened. Silence stretched across the mountainside. Then, a soft pulse of silver light rippled through the crystal veins. The gates trembled. Commander Rhys frowned. "No." The massive stone doors slowly began to open. The grinding sound echoed through the valley like distant thunder. Elder Rowan's breathing caught. "They've never opened." Cold air flowed from the darkness within. It carried the scent of ancient stone, frost, and something strangely familiar. Moonflowers. Flowers that had disappeared from the kingdom centuries ago. The Diamond Wolf stepped inside. It stopped only once, looking back at Lyra, inviting her. She swallowed hard before crossing the threshold. The moment her foot touched the crystal floor, the cavern awakened. Veins of pale blue light spread beneath her boots like rivers beneath frozen glass. One by one, crystal formations embedded in the walls shimmered to life, illuminating murals hidden beneath centuries of darkness. Everyone stared. The paintings depicted queens, wearing crowns unlike any preserved in the royal treasury. Beside each stood the sacred Diamond Wolf, not kneeling, walking together, equals. Lyra slowly approached the nearest mural. She reached out hesitantly. The instant her fingertips brushed the crystal surface, another pulse of light raced through the cavern. Ancient symbols appeared across the walls, writing, forgotten words. Elder Rowan hurried forward, nearly dropping his scrolls. His tired eyes widened as he translated the faded script. "This!" His voice cracked. "This should not exist." "What does it say?" Kaelin asked. The elder ran trembling fingers across the glowing inscription. "It records the first moon oath." He continued reading in silence. Each line stole more color from his face. Finally, he looked toward Lyra. 800 years ago, there was another royal bloodline. Kaelin frowned. "Our histories mention only House Draven. They're incomplete." "No," Rowan whispered. "They were rewritten." A heavy silence settled over the cavern. Someone had erased an entire family from history. Not by accident, by intention. As the realization spread through the chamber, the Diamond Wolf walked deeper into the cavern. At its center stood a solitary crystal pillar untouched by time. Words slowly emerged across its surface, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Only one sentence. Ancient. Unmistakable. Elder Rowan read it aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. She shall return, the daughter of the last moon oath. Every eye turned toward Lyra. She stared at the glowing inscription, unable to breathe. She had entered the cavern believing she was an unwanted servant. Now the mountain itself seemed to know her name. But if she truly belonged to a bloodline erased from history, who had spent 800 years making certain no one would ever discover the truth, the journey back from the Diamond Cavern felt nothing like the journey there. When they had climbed the mountain, Lyra had been an invisible servant following a mysterious beast. When they descended, every step she took seemed to shake the foundations of the kingdom. Word traveled faster than horses. Before the royal procession reached the palace gates, merchants were already whispering through crowded marketplaces. Hunters abandoned campfires to carry the news into distant forests. Messengers rode through snow-covered valleys until every pack in Valtheris heard the impossible story. The sacred Diamond Wolf had refused every noble Luna. It had chosen an Omega. Inside the Crystal Throne Hall, that single truth shattered months of careful political planning. The Guardian has made an error. Lord Varric slammed both hands onto the council table. It is an animal. It cannot understand royal blood. Another noble immediately nodded. The ceremony must be repeated. Princess Celine remained silent, though anger burned behind her calm smile. She had rehearsed the moment she would become Luna since childhood. Every lesson, every sacrifice, every carefully chosen word, all stolen by a servant. King Kalen stood before the towering crystal windows overlooking the snowy capital. He listened without interrupting. When the council finally fell quiet, he spoke only one sentence. The Guardian has never chosen incorrectly. The chamber erupted. But, no! Kalen turned slowly. His gray eyes settled upon every council member. For 8 centuries our laws have existed because the Guardian stood above kings. If we reject its judgment today, he let the unfinished thought linger. Then every sacred law becomes nothing more than opinion. No one answered, not because they agreed, because they feared he might be right. Far below the palace, Lyra had returned to the servants' quarters. The tiny room she had occupied for years looked exactly the same. A narrow wooden bed, a small fireplace, one worn blanket folded neatly beside a single window. Yet nothing felt familiar anymore. The younger servant girls stared as she entered. No one mocked her. No one smiled either. They simply looked uncertain. Finally, little Mira, the newest kitchen helper, quietly stepped forward. Is it true? Lyra blinked. What? The Guardian bowed to you. She hesitated before answering. I don't know why. Mira smiled softly. I don't think it matters. Before Lyra could reply, the child gently embraced her. It was the first hug Lyra had received in years. She closed her eyes. Something warm stirred inside her chest. Not pride, belonging. Outside the palace walls, the kingdom was changing in quieter ways. Hunters reported strange sightings. Entire wolf packs had begun abandoning their traditional territories. Not to attack villages, not to hunt livestock. Instead, they gathered near the capital. At first there were only 3, then 12, then dozens. By the 3rd evening, wolves watched silently from every surrounding hill. They neither growled nor approached people. They simply waited, watching the palace, watching Lyra. Commander Reese stood upon the western wall with a spyglass pressed against his eyes. I've never seen anything like this. One of his soldiers swallowed nervously. Should we prepare the archers? Reese lowered the glass. No, they aren't here to invade. He looked toward the palace gardens where Lyra quietly tended frozen herbs despite everything happening around her. They're here for her. Princess Celine refused to believe that. Late that night, she gathered several ambitious high alphas inside an abandoned tower. Candles flickered across maps spread over a stone table. The kingdom fears uncertainty, Celine said calmly. We will give them certainty. One alpha frowned. You intend to challenge the Guardian? I intend to expose the fraud. And if she truly is chosen, Celine's expression hardened. Then she must disappear before the kingdom believes it. Silence filled the room. No one asked exactly what she meant. They already understood. The following afternoon, Lyra slipped beyond the palace gardens carrying a basket of dried meat. She needed silence. The whispers had become overwhelming. Every hallway fell quiet when she entered. Every servant stared. Every noble glared. She wandered into the edge of the silver forest, where snow blanketed the ground beneath towering pines. A familiar gray wolf emerged between the trees. Its left ear carried an old scar. Lyra smiled faintly. "I remember you." Months earlier, she had removed a hunter's trap from its leg. Slowly, she placed strips of meat upon a flat stone. The wolf approached. Then another appeared. Then another. Within minutes, nearly 20 wolves surrounded the clearing. None acted aggressively. They simply sat quietly, watching her, waiting. Lyra laughed softly despite herself. "I don't have enough food for all of you." The wolves' tails brushed gently through the snow. High above them, hidden among thick branches, a hooded assassin drew back the string of a crossbow. Princess Celine's orders had been simple. No witnesses, no suffering. One clean shot. The assassin steadied his breathing. His finger tightened. Before he could release, a thunderous howl echoed through the forest. The wolves reacted instantly. Every head snapped upward. The assassin had barely enough time to gasp before 4 massive white wolves burst through the trees. His crossbow flew from numb fingers. Within seconds, he was running blindly downhill while wolves surrounded him from every direction. They never bit him. They never touched him. They simply herded him away from Lyra until he vanished into the forest screaming. The clearing fell silent once again. Lyra looked around in confusion. What frightened him? The scarred gray wolf gently nudged her hand, as though telling her not to worry. Hidden nearby, Commander Reese lowered himself from another ridge. He had followed Lyra in secret under the king's orders. He had seen everything. No command had summoned those wolves. No whistle. No magic. They had chosen to protect her. His understanding of the world shifted in that single moment. That evening Reese reported everything to King Calen. "They moved before I could." "You are certain?" "I've commanded hunters for 20 years. His voice remained steady. "I've never witnessed wolves defending a human without command." Calen walked toward the palace balcony. Far beyond the city lights, dozens of glowing eyes reflected beneath the moon. Watching, waiting, protecting. Not the king, not the palace. Lyra. At that same moment, miles away beneath the frozen cliffs of the Diamond Cavern, the sacred guardian stood before a snow-covered altar forgotten by history. It lowered one crystal paw. The frozen earth cracked open. Beneath centuries of ice, something ancient slowly emerged. Not a weapon, not a scroll, a crown unlike any the kingdom had ever seen. Its silver branches shimmered with veins of living crystal. The diamond wolf gazed upon it in silence, then lifted its head toward the moon, as if announcing that the next forgotten truth was finally ready to awaken. The ancient crown rested upon a pedestal of black crystal. Moonlight filtered through the ceiling of the Diamond Cavern, striking its silver branches until veins of living crystal shimmered like frozen rivers beneath ice. The sacred diamond wolf remained perfectly still beside it. Its sapphire eyes reflected not triumph, but sorrow. King Calen stepped closer, his boots echoing softly across the cavern floor. Behind him, Elder Rowan carefully brushed centuries of frost from the stone pedestal while Commander Reese silently ordered the guards to secure every entrance. No one touched the crown. Every instinct warned them that it belonged to another age. Lyra remained several steps behind. She stared at the strange object with growing unease. "I've seen it before." Every head turned toward her. Calen frowned gently. "Where?" She hesitated. "I don't know." She closed her eyes. "When I was little, I used to dream about a woman standing beneath a white tree. She always wore that crown." Silence swept across the chamber. Elder Rowan slowly looked toward the ancient murals covering the cavern walls. His heart began pounding. "The Forgotten Queen." He whispered the words, as though afraid the mountain itself might hear. Rowan carefully unfolded one of the oldest scrolls recovered from the royal archives. Its edges had nearly crumbled with age. Most of its writing had been scratched away long ago. Yet as the crown's crystal light spread across the parchment, hidden ink slowly emerged. Commander Reese inhaled sharply. It was invisible. It was hidden intentionally, Rowan corrected. His trembling fingers traced the glowing letters. This scroll was altered. Someone wanted future generations to believe another history. King Kaelin's expression darkened. "Read it." The elder nodded. His voice echoed softly through the cavern. Before the reign of House Draven, Valtheris was guarded by two sacred bloodlines. The crown protected the kingdom. The moon oath protected the people. Neither could rule without the other. Lyra listened without understanding. Kaelin listened with growing dread. Rowan continued, "Should either bloodline seek power above service, the sacred guardian shall reject them." His hand stopped shaking, not because he had become calmer, because he suddenly understood. The guardian had not rejected 12 noble women because they lacked royal blood. It had rejected them because the oath itself had been broken centuries ago. A heavy silence settled across the cavern. Finally Kaelin spoke. "If this is true, my ancestors built their throne upon a lie." No one answered. Even Reese lowered his eyes. For generations the Draven family had ruled with honor. They had defended the kingdom, protected its borders, fed its villages during harsh winters. Yet honor built upon stolen truth remained incomplete. Kaelin walked toward the crown. He did not reach for it. Instead, he knelt, not before the crown, before history itself. "I cannot answer for the dead." His voice remained steady. "But I will answer for the living." Lyra looked at him with quiet surprise. This was not the reaction she expected from a king. Most rulers protected their legacy. Kaelin chose to question it. For the first time since entering the palace, she felt a fragile thread of trust begin to form. The diamond wolf suddenly rose. Its crystal fur shimmered brighter than before. Without warning, it walked toward the deepest chamber of the cavern. The others followed. The tunnel narrowed until it opened into a circular hall unlike any room they had yet discovered. The walls were made entirely of flawless crystal. No murals, no carvings, only reflections. Thousands of them. As Lyra stepped into the chamber, every crystal surface awakened. Silver light flowed across the walls. Then the reflections disappeared, replacing them with memories, not dreams, not illusions. The past itself. 800 years earlier, the same chamber had been filled with wolves. At its center stood a young queen wearing the crystal crown. Her hand rested gently upon the diamond wolf's head. Beside her stood another alpha. Not Draven. His face carried pride and envy. The memory unfolded in complete silence. The ambitious alpha smiled. Then, without warning, he drove a silver blade into the queen's back. Lyra gasped. The queen staggered forward. Blood stained the crystal floor. The diamond wolf lunged with a roar that shook the cavern, but dozens of armed warriors blocked its path. The dying queen looked toward the guardian one final time. She smiled despite her pain, then placed her blood-stained hand upon the crystal floor. The chamber exploded with silver light. Every written record, every royal seal, every symbol connecting her bloodline to the throne, vanished. Not destroyed, hidden, protected. The queen had erased herself from history before her murderer could erase her forever. The vision faded. Silence returned. Only the quiet breathing of those who had witnessed the truth remained. Elder Rowan slowly fell to one knee. She sacrificed her own legacy so the oath could survive. Commander Reese stared at the empty crystal floor. The guardian, it wasn't waiting for revenge. Rowan nodded. It was waiting for her descendant. The diamond wolf lowered its massive head. Its eyes rested gently upon Lyra, not as a ruler, as family remembered. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. She had spent her entire life believing she belonged nowhere. Yet 8 centuries earlier, someone had trusted that one day she would come, far from the diamond cavern. Inside the western tower of the palace, Princess Selene crushed a crystal goblet in her hand. Blood dripped across the marble floor. A frightened messenger knelt before her. "The king has found something beneath the mountain." "What?" We don't know." The guardians sealed the entrance behind them. Selene's breathing became uneven. Every hour Lyra remained alive, the kingdom drifted further beyond her reach. Slowly, She walked toward a locked iron chest hidden behind a tapestry. Only 3 people knew it existed. Inside rested a small black dagger wrapped in crimson cloth. Its blade was carved from obsidian instead of silver. Forbidden, ancient, touched by blood magic that had been outlawed centuries ago. She lifted it carefully. If the guardian will not choose me, her reflection smiled back from the polished blade, then I will force it to. The next morning, the royal procession returned to the palace carrying the ancient crystal crown under heavy guard. Crowds filled every street. Some knelt before Lyra. Others turned their backs. The kingdom had become 2 kingdoms. One believed the guardian. The other believed history. Neither realized that history itself had lied. As the procession entered the palace gates, a cold wind swept across the capital. High above the city, the sacred diamond wolf suddenly lifted its head. Its ears flattened. Its sapphire eyes narrowed toward the western tower, toward the darkness quietly awakening behind stone walls. For the first time since Lyra had met the guardian, the ancient beast growled, not in judgment, in warning. Winter settled heavily over Valtheris. For 3 days after returning from the diamond cavern, the palace no longer felt like the heart of a kingdom. It felt like a fortress waiting for war. Royal guards doubled their patrols. Council meetings stretched long into the night. Messengers rode between the great packs without rest, carrying letters sealed with the king's crest. Some returned with pledges of loyalty. Others returned with carefully written refusals. The kingdom had not drawn swords, but it had already divided its heart. Through it all, Lyra remained in the small chamber she had always occupied. The palace had offered her larger quarters. She quietly refused. "I've slept here for years," she told the servants. "I don't need a grander room to know who I am." The words spread farther than she realized. Servants repeated them in kitchens. Stable hands carried them into villages. Hunters told the story around mountain fires. Little by little, the image of the ambitious Omega, invented by frightened nobles, began to crumble. People were no longer asking why the guardian had chosen Lyra. They were beginning to understand. King Cavern watched those changes carefully. One icy morning, he found Lyra alone in the palace infirmary. An elderly mason had slipped while repairing one of the outer walls. Instead of resting after days of relentless attention, Lyra was quietly changing the old man's bandages. "You should be attending council," the mason muttered. She smiled. "They have enough important people already." Cavern remained in the doorway unnoticed. He watched as Lyra carefully wrapped the man's injured wrist. She spoke gently, asking about his grandchildren, listening to stories she had likely heard before. When she finished, she tucked an extra loaf of warm bread into his bag. "For the walk home," she whispered. The old man blinked back tears. "No queen has ever treated me this kindly." Lyra looked embarrassed. "I'm not a queen." "You don't have to wear a crown," the mason replied. "Some people carry one in their heart." Cavern quietly stepped away before they noticed him. Something shifted inside him. For weeks, he had tried to understand why the guardian had bowed. Standing outside that small infirmary, he no longer searched for political reasons. He simply saw the woman. Far across the palace, Princess Selene prepared for something entirely different. Deep beneath the western tower lay an abandoned shrine. Long before the moon oath, forbidden rituals had been performed there. Most believed those stories were myths. Selene knew otherwise. She descended alone, carrying the black obsidian dagger wrapped in crimson cloth. At the center of the ruined chamber stood an ancient basin carved from black stone. She sliced her palm without hesitation. Blood fell into the basin. Dark symbols awakened beneath the surface. A cold voice whispered from the shadows. "What do you seek?" Selene never looked afraid. "I seek recognition. Recognition cannot be stolen. It can be forced." The darkness rippled. "Everything taken through blood demands blood in return. I accept the price." The whisper faded. The basin filled with black mist. Selene smiled. She believed she had won. She never noticed that the walls around the shrine had begun to crack. That same evening, Elder Rowan summoned Lyra and King Cavern to the Hall of Moon Records. The old scholar spread dozens of restored scrolls across a long oak table. "I believe we've misunderstood one part of the moon oath." Lyra leaned closer. "What part?" Rowan pointed toward newly revealed symbols. "The guardian does not recognize blood first. It recognizes the heart." Cavern frowned. Then why does Lyra's bloodline matter? Because the first queen understood something her descendants forgot. He gently tapped another line. The sacred bloodline was never meant to rule. It existed to remind rulers whom they served. Lyra remained silent. She thought of the servants, the children, the lonely wolves she had fed. None of them had ever cared about blood. They cared about kindness. Perhaps, so did the guardian. Before anyone could speak again, a terrible howl shattered the silence. Not from ordinary wolves, from the sacred diamond wolf itself. The sound rolled through every hallway in the palace. It wasn't calling. It was warning. The ground shook violently. Crystal windows exploded inward. Guards rushed toward the courtyard. King Calen drew his sword while Rhys barked orders across the palace. Protect the civilians! Outside, the sacred diamond wolf stood in the center of the snow-covered courtyard. Its crystal fur blazed brighter than anyone had ever seen. Facing it, Princess Selene. The obsidian dagger glowed crimson in her hand. Dark mist spiraled around her feet. I gave everything for this kingdom, she shouted. I was born to become Luna. The guardian answered with a deafening roar. The palace walls trembled. Still Selene advanced. She raised the dagger high. If you will not choose me, I will make you kneel. She drove the blade toward the guardian's crystal heart. Everything happened at once. The diamond wolf lunged to shield Lyra. The dagger struck crystal instead of flesh. A violent explosion of silver and crimson light erupted across the courtyard. The guardian staggered. For the first time in living memory, the ancient beast cried out in pain. A deep crack spread across the crystal covering its chest. Blue light began pouring from the wound like liquid moonlight. The entire kingdom froze. The immortal guardian was bleeding. Move! Commander Rhys shouted. Guards rushed toward Selene. She disappeared into a cloud of black smoke before anyone reached her. The forbidden magic had claimed its payment. She escaped, but not unchanged. The crimson mist left dark scars climbing her arm. The curse had already begun. No one noticed. Every eye remained fixed upon the fallen guardian. The enormous wolf struggled to breathe. Its crystal body dimmed with every heartbeat. Elder Rowan whispered in horror. If the guardian dies, the moon oath dies with it. Panic spread. Royal healers rushed forward, carrying silver herbs and enchanted water. Nothing worked. Every remedy faded the moment it touched the cracked crystal. One by one, they stepped back. We cannot heal it. Silence followed. Then Lyra quietly knelt beside the guardian. She placed one trembling hand upon the deep fracture in its crystal chest. Warm moonlight pulsed beneath her fingers. The great wolf slowly opened its sapphire eyes. It looked only at her. Not as a queen, not as a descendant, as a friend. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. I don't know how to save you. The guardian gently lowered its massive head until it rested against her shoulder. It trusted her completely. Without hesitation, Lyra closed her eyes. If my life is the price, you can have it. A brilliant silver light burst from her palm. The wound answered. The cracked crystal slowly stopped spreading. The guardian took one deep, steady breath. Then, with visible effort, it rose to its feet. Every wolf throughout the valley lifted its voice in a single, haunting chorus. The sacred diamond wolf turned toward the northern mountains, toward one final place hidden beyond memory, the forgotten Queen's Garden. It took several slow steps, then looked back at Lyra and King Calen. The final judgment had begun. Before dawn painted the eastern mountains with silver light, the sacred diamond wolf began its final journey. Though the crack across its crystal chest had stopped spreading, every step carried visible strain. Blue light still escaped through the fractured crystal like moonlight leaking through frozen glass. No one questioned where it was going. The guardian had spoken without words. Its destination was the forgotten Queen's Garden. King Calen rode at the front of the royal procession, but he did not ride as a king leading his people. He rode as a guardian walking beside them. Commander Rhys and the royal guard protected the villages along the route, while Elder Rowan carried the restored Moon Oath scroll wrapped carefully in white cloth. Lyra walked beside the diamond wolf. The guardian refused to let anyone else near. Whenever she slowed from exhaustion, the ancient wolf quietly matched her pace. Whenever icy winds swept across the mountain paths, it shifted closer, shielding her from the cold with its enormous crystal body. Neither needed words. Trust had grown between them beyond language. As they climbed higher, people began appearing from every corner of Valtheris. Farmers left their fields. Blacksmiths abandoned glowing forges. Hunters emerged from snowy forests. Servants from the palace traveled beside noble families. For perhaps the first time in the kingdom's history, no one walked according to rank. They simply walked together. Kaelin noticed it. The old kingdom was already fading. Something better was quietly taking its place. By midday, they reached a valley hidden between towering white cliffs. The forgotten queen's garden lay before them. It was unlike anything Lyra had imagined. Thousands of moonflowers covered the frozen ground, their silver petals glowing softly beneath the winter sky despite centuries of abandonment. Crystal trees stretched toward the heavens, their branches shimmering like stars captured in ice. At the center stood a circular platform carved from white stone. The moment the diamond wolf stepped upon it, the entire garden awakened. Ancient roots stirred beneath the snow. Crystal branches bloomed with pale blue light. Moonflowers slowly opened, releasing a gentle fragrance that filled the valley. A warm wind passed through the frozen garden. Winter itself seemed to pause. The guardian climbed onto the highest stone. Then it looked toward Lyra, not with command, with invitation. Elder Rowan carefully unfolded the restored scroll. His voice echoed across the silent valley. For 8 centuries we believed the moon oath chose rulers. He looked toward the gathered kingdom. We were wrong. It chose servants. A murmur spread through the crowd. Rowan continued, the queen was never meant to stand above the people. She was meant to stand among them. He turned to Lyra. The oath is yours to answer. Every eye settled upon her. Nobles, hunters, children, servants. Even Princess Selene, now captured after her failed escape, stood among the guards with dark scars creeping across her arm, the lasting price of the forbidden blood magic she had embraced. Lyra's heart pounded. She looked at the ancient crown resting upon its crystal pedestal, then at the thousands of people waiting. She could claim power. She could expose every noble who had mocked her. She could demand revenge. Instead, she stepped away from the crown. The entire valley fell silent. She knelt before an elderly servant whose hands still bore the burns of years spent working palace ovens. Then she helped him stand. Only afterward did she face the kingdom. Her voice was quiet, yet every word carried through the garden. I spent most of my life believing that being unseen meant being unimportant. I was wrong. She looked toward the children gathered behind their parents. Every servant who lights a hearth, every hunter who protects a village, every healer who stays awake through the night. They carry this kingdom as surely as any king. She turned toward the nobles. If I accept this oath, I will never rule above you. I will serve beside you. Silence. Then, the moon oath answered. The ancient crown lifted gently from its pedestal. No hand touched it. Silver light surrounded its crystal branches. The crown drifted slowly through the air, until it rested upon Lyra's head. At that same instant, the diamond wolf rose onto its powerful legs. The crack across its crystal chest sealed completely. Blue light burst outward like the first sunrise after a long winter. The guardian threw back its head and released the mightiest howl the kingdom had ever heard. The sound rolled across mountains, through forests, across rivers. Every wolf in Valtheris answered. Thousands of voices joined together beneath the full moon still visible in the pale afternoon sky. The moon oath had returned. Princess Selene dropped to her knees. For the first time, the ambition that had ruled her life disappeared. Only regret remained. I thought. Her voice broke. I thought being chosen would make me worthy. Lyra approached her slowly. The guards reached for their weapons. Kaelin quietly raised one hand. Wait! Lyra knelt before Selene. The guardian didn't reject you because you wanted to be queen. It rejected you because you believed a crown could heal what only kindness could. Selene lowered her head. Tears fell silently into the snow. Justice would come through the kingdom's laws, not vengeance. The cycle of hatred ended there. King Kaelin walked toward Lyra. For a long moment, neither spoke. Everything that mattered had already been earned through countless quiet choices. He looked at the restored crown, then gently removed his own. Without hesitation, the Alpha King knelt before the newly chosen Luna. Not as a subject, not in surrender, as an equal honoring the truth. You have reminded this kingdom what leadership truly means." He smiled for the first time in many months. "If you will have me, I would rather walk beside you than rule ahead of you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She offered him her hand. "Then walk with me." He accepted it. The valley erupted into joyful cheers. Not because a king had found his queen, because two leaders had chosen each other. Weeks later, Valtheris began to change. The old laws dividing wolves by birth were rewritten. Omega children entered schools beside noble heirs. Servants gained voices within village councils. Hunters and healers shared equal places at royal gatherings. The Crystal Throne Hall no longer displayed only the banners of great packs. It also honored craftsmen, farmers, teachers, and guardians. The kingdom slowly became what the first queen had dreamed it could be. On the first sunrise after spring returned, Lyra and Kaelin climbed the highest ridge overlooking the capital. The sacred diamond wolf stood waiting. Its crystal fur reflected the golden dawn. Beside its enormous paw tumbled a tiny crystal-coated wolf pup, chasing drifting snowflakes with playful determination. The little creature stopped before Lyra. After studying her with bright sapphire eyes, it gently pressed its tiny nose against her hand. The diamond wolf watched in quiet approval. Another guardian, another beginning. Far below, the bells of Valtheris rang across the valleys as wolves answered from every forest. Lyra smiled, not because she had finally been chosen, but because no child born after this day would ever have to wait for a miracle to prove they mattered. High above the awakening kingdom, the sacred diamond wolf lifted its head one final time. Its howl echoed across mountains, rivers, and endless forests. This time, it carried no warning, only peace.